Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going over how to clean and lubricate your SCAR rifle. It's going to apply whether you're shooting the SCAR 16 or SCAR 17. Everything's pretty much the same in the clean and lubrication realm anyway. So this rifle right now has about 1,500 rounds through its last cleaning, which is probably a little bit high, but it was actually out at a meet and greet shoot we had, and lots of people were putting lots of rounds through it. Almost all suppressed. I think actually all out there were suppressed, certainly over 1,000. So it's going to be dirty, particularly in the piston area. The rest of it should be okay because this rifle runs pretty clean. But we're going to take it apart, show you how to clean, lubricate, put it back together, all that stuff. I'm going to do it as if this is your first rifle, you're brand new to the SCAR, and really don't have a good basis in the knowledge, just to sort of break it down at that level. And at the end, we'll wrap it up, and hopefully we'll all learn something together. So let's get into it. Less talking, more cleaning. The first thing we're going to do is check and make sure the rifle is unloaded. You obviously don't want a magazine in there. Then we're going to take our charging handle here on the left, pull it back, inspect the chamber, and make sure that there are no rounds in there, and there aren't. So at that point, we're going to take this little takedown pin right here on the left side of the lower receiver, pull it all the way out until it stops. At that point, you can pull your receiver down and forward like that, and it should come right out. Now we're going to take our stock and just pull down on it, and again that should just slide right out just by hand pressure. At this point here we have our retaining plate on the back end. Hopefully you guys can see that right there. So what I'm going to do is pull back a little bit on the charging handle, and at the same time pull down on this. We can remove our spring. We're going to set that off to the side. Now we're going to pull the charging handle back to this little notch right here on your receiver and just pull out, and that should come out. Now we're able to remove our bolt and carrier from the rifle. The SCAR is a well thought out weapon, so it comes with its own tools, if you will. So the charging handle also works as a takedown pin to push your retaining pin out there. We're going to set that off to the side. You should be able at this point to remove your firing pin, and you can. Now we're going to take our cam pin here and just pull that out as well, and then the bolt will come free from the carrier. At this point, we need to move our front sight in the up position if it's not already there, just to get it out of the way, and flip it up like that. Now, we have our regulator. This one here has been firing suppressed, like we said, and like you guys have probably seen, so it's on the suppressed position, but we need to get it all the way over to the other side. So the way we're going to do that is you should just be able to turn it now with hand tension over to the standard position where it would be sort of at 12 o'clock like that, which does happen. Sometimes if you're firing a lot of suppressed rounds, which I was kind of fearing we were about to have to do, you have to depress the pin with a punch, but we're going to have to do that here anyway. So you can use the charging handle. We're going to try that first, but sometimes it gets so dirty. What we're doing here, just to let you guys know, is this little pin right here, detent. If my camera will focus, there you go. We're pushing that in, and then we're going to rotate this down to the 4 o'clock position if you're looking at it from the muzzle. So I'm going to try it with this. If not, I have a punch, because again, when you're firing suppressed, sometimes this gets a little sticky, and yeah, I can feel it sticking. So you can use our punch once you get the detent pushed down to sort of get yourself a little bit of leverage and break the carbon buildup on there, which I just did, and click it into place, and now we can remove it. With the regulator removed, we're going to take a cleaning rod and just push it down. USGI one should work fine. If it's really dirty, it might need something a little stronger like this AK one here. But we're just going to line it up. Basically, there's a piston that goes right in your receiver from here, so you kind of just got to eyeball it. And we're just going to push it through. Let me angle it there so maybe I can see it a little bit better. And like I said, if you're really dirty, you might have to kind of pop it a little bit like I'm doing to get it to go out. And there you go. There's your piston, and we are completely disassembled. Before getting into the actual cleaning portion, we'll go over what we're using. You can sort of build your own kit with the stuff we're recommending here. We'll put links down in the video description for all of it, or you can buy like a fancy complete kit. Either way is fine. So one thing that's a little different from a lot of videos I do here, we're going to use a bronze brush here. You can use a steel one as well. Just make sure it's a mild steel, and that's because of the piston system here is sort of unique in that. We're going to use a regular toothbrush. Just any old toothbrush will work fine. We're going to use polymer picks. Some folks will recommend metal ones. I don't like metal because it can mar the metal of your actual firearm itself. So these are made by Tipton. They're like $10 for like a 4-pack or something like that. And I like them because they do the same job and they don't mar your finish. So it's certainly good, or any of the metal on the inside. We have some cleaning patches here, which are actually cut up t-shirt. If you guys want to buy cleaning patches, that's fine. I find cut up t-shirts work fine as well. And then we have some break-free CLP and some repurposed bottles here. So I purchased these ones. I think they come in like a 3-pack. And then this is a bottle from my wife, some of her old body spray. So that's what we got, but it's break-free CLP in there. Again, we'll put a link down below so you guys can check that out. And then lastly, we have this little cord right here. These are made by Otis. This is a 22 caliber one. I like it basically over your standard USGI type of punch, because I think it's less likely to cause any damage to the firearm. But either one will work just fine. If you have a USGI rod, that'll work too. So anyway, on to the actual cleaning itself. We're going to tackle these piston parts here because that's what's up first. And we have them sitting in front of us, so why not get to them, right? So we have the piston itself, and that's one thing I do recommend a wire brush for. Basically, we're just going to hit the piston itself to knock all the carbon off there. If you guys fire these guns relatively heavy, particularly in the 308 caliber, and do a lot of firing, particularly on the suppressor, you're going to have a lot of carbon buildup in there. So just brush it to get it off. It might get shiny down to the metal like you're used to. It might not. It just sort of depends on how hot you got your firearm. If you get it too hot, you'll need a solvent to get it down to the metal. But really, according to the manual and according to everything I know about cleaning guns, you really don't need to get it down to the middle. You just want that carbon buildup off there and get it pretty darn clean, which you can kind of see actually that one's getting pretty close. So we're just going to keep brushing it until it's as clean as you want it. What you want is not a ton of carbon buildup on the surface to allow the piston to move freely. So it doesn't have to be perfectly spick and span, but that's what you're looking for there when you're actually seeing where you're at. Now with the actual regulator, you want to make sure that the portholes here are clean and free of carbon. That anything will go through there, and there's not a bunch of carbon buildup in the actual holes itself. On the inside, you can definitely take a little rag here, a dry rag, a patch, and just sort of work it around there with your dental pick and get most of that carbon out there. It doesn't actually get too darn built up on the inside. It's mostly on the outside, and then here sort of on the lip, which is the part that gets really tight when you're trying to remove it after doing a lot of firing. So definitely want to brush and knock all that carbon off too. Next, we're going to tackle the barrel, and we're just going to spray some CLP on a patch here, fold it up and put it on our cable. And I typically like to do this actually first once I get everything disassembled, but those piston parts were just looking at me. And we're going to put it on our clean cable and push it through the chamber here, like so. Generally speaking, you want to go from the chamber to the muzzle, not the other way around. Although, honestly, with these types of cleaning equipment in a chrome line barrel like this that's cold hammer forged, I'm not sure it would really make much difference, but it's good practice. So we're going to push it through, and with the brake on the end, it's sort of difficult sometimes to get the cables through, but this one worked just fine. But CLP stands for cleaning lubricant and protectant, or cleaning lubricant and preservative, depending on whom you ask. Either way, what we're doing here is putting the C, or the clean portion, to work. So the CLP will actually start breaking down the carbon in the barrel. Again, this one has a chrome line barrel, so that's even easier to clean. So I like to do that first and get that thin layer of CLP in the barrel and have it work and break down that carbon while we're cleaning the rest of the gun. On all the bolt assembly parts, I'm just going to spray a little bit of CLP, and we'll get it on the bolt as well. And just get a little layer on there and work it around with the toothbrush just to get all that carbon sort of removed, or the fouling sort of loosened up, because we're going to come and wipe it here in just a second. And just kind of work it all the way around. The SCAR, being a piston gun, the actual bolts assembly is relatively clean. It's the piston that gets most of the grit and grime in this action. That's why it was hard to sort of scrape off earlier, but there still is some carbon that comes back here. Again, particularly when firing suppressed. So we just want to work in all the way around there and make sure that we're getting the carbon loosened up, because here in just a second we're going to come wipe all of that up. In the lower receiver and the trigger mechanism, I'm just going to put a little bit of CLP on there. Now I'm going to hold the trigger as I pull it forward on fire, so it doesn't slam home, and that'll allow me to get back in there. And one thing that's nice about these guns is there's just tons of room, and it really will let you get in the trigger housing there and just clean everything up. It's nice and big and chunky and just easy to clean. There's not a lot of small parts in there like on some other rifles. So just kind of work everything around. Again, loosening the carbon. If you have a black rifle, you won't notice as much, but on these FDE ones, you do kind of see where it's building up. And we'll set that aside as well. Our recoil spring, I'm just sort of going to do the same thing, a little spray on there. And again, working around the brush, loosening everything up. This one here stays pretty clean, but a little bit of light CLP isn't going to hurt it at all. So we'll set that off to the side and get to the receiver. You can certainly see all that carbon in there. We're going to spray a couple sprays in there, and we're going to do the same thing. Just work in there with that toothbrush, get everything all loosened up, and then here in just a second, once we do all that, we're going to attack that chamber and kind of get the grime out of there. For the chamber, we'll take a patch, spray a little bit of CLP on there, and then it's easier to do not on camera, but we're going to try here. You can see that down in the chamber there. This curved tipped-in polymer pick here works pretty well, and you can get most areas of the chamber coming at it from both angles. So just going to kind of put it in there, and then just kind of work it around and try to get all that carbon out of there that we can get just from different angles with that curved tip. You can see there's a good bit in there. We're just going to keep doing that until it's clean. The CLP's been working its way in the barrel there for a little bit. We're going to spray this one here with some CLP and run it through again. Now, how clean you need to get a barrel is a matter of heated debate on the forums. If you guys go on there, a lot of folks say you don't really need to get the carbon out, or rather the copper out ever until you start to lose accuracy. I tend to agree with that. And the carbon is not of huge importance, particularly if you're shooting, again, like this, a chrome line cold hammer forged barrel. But I like to run at least a few patches through. Some folks like to run the patches through until they come out clean. I will leave that for you guys to decide on your personal rifle. But I like to run a couple through at least to just kind of get everything out of there and make sure it's relatively clean. But I do also believe that carbon, or copper fouling rather, does help provide consistent groups. So you can see how it comes out there after that CLP has been working. Again, you can just keep running these patches through until it's as clean as you want. Now we're just going to wipe everything down with some rags or patches and just make sure we got everything as clean as it can be. The piston pieces, generally you want to keep them dry. If there's a really light coat of CLP on there, I'm pretty sure it's not going to hurt anything, but it's definitely recommended just to keep it off there. So you can actually see, even with that little bit of scraping, if my camera will focus, that's actually pretty darn clean. So that's the piston, and that's perfectly fine in my opinion to go back in the rifle and, you know, fire a few more rounds until the next cleaning session, probably a lot more than a few. So we're just taking all the different pieces and wiping the CLP and the carbon off after it's been sitting there, getting cleaned up, and working the carbon breakdown around it rather. You can see our firing pin, it's pretty much spotless actually, so that's certainly good. And then the bolt, and with the bolt, again, this really is one of the easiest ones to clean. It makes you wish that AR-15s had similar bolts when you're cleaning those, but I like to cover the bolt face like that and then use, again, the tipped-in pick to get up under the extractor to make sure we get that cleaned out, because that really is important for proper extraction of the rounds, to make sure that they're fully seating on the case rim and getting pulled out of there as they should be. So get under there and make sure it's nice and clean, and then I like to sort of fold it up and just kind of go in between each bolt lug. Again, make sure there's not a lot of grit in there, because if the bolt can't lock up, the rifle won't fire. So get all that cleaned out and then work our way over here to the carrier. Same sorts of things, we're just going to wipe it up. And then one part that we sort of want to pay special attention to is down in here. So I like to take, again, the picks and just kind of run it through just like you would sort of with the barrel. Make sure that we get everything cleaned up there on the inside where the bolt itself is actually riding. You can see there's definitely some stuff in there, and just kind of go back and forth in both the channels that are in the carrier to get everything out of there. You can continue, I should say rather, to do this until all your patches come out white. Again, how clean you need to make it sort of is up to you. Continuing on with the theme, we're doing the same thing here on the little receiver. Some folks really, particularly on these FDE guns, from what I hear and read on the internet, get kind of worked up about seeing the black coloration of the carbon deposits on there. If that's you, you can use a solvent to do it. Just make sure you use one that's safe for polymer. If you're unsure, and just don't know what to use, Simple Green Pro, the Pro version, which is a version that doesn't have a compound that can hurt aluminum, is what I'd recommend using. If you don't know about solvents and don't want to go down that road, or if your wife complains about the smells like mine does, Simple Green Pro does work. And the Pro version, again, I'm specifying that for a reason, is safe on pretty much any gun part I've ever heard of. So if, like, for instance, this discoloration here bothered you, that will take it off. It doesn't bother me at all. so I'm okay with the discoloration as long as I get the carbon off the actual surface of the polymer itself. Moving on to the lubrication portion of it, we'll start out with the carrier. And basically, there's a couple spots you want to lubricate. Anywhere after you use it, any way that you see wear, you definitely want to lubricate. But you also want to get in these rails a little bit, just a light coat, and same here. Some folks will advocate for grease on a couple parts of this rifle. I'm not opposed to that. If you do, I just recommend using a grease that would be either lithium based or firearms actual specific. So you can see the wear spots here, and in this little groove there where it's riding the receiver. Those are the places you want to make sure you put some CLP. And really, if you were to just put a light coat of CLP on the whole thing, some folks would say it would be over lubricated, but really, it's really not going to hurt anything at that point. The only spot that you really don't want to have lubricated on the rifle are these parts here, as well as where they go into the piston assembly on the actual upper receiver itself. They recommend these are dry. Again, like I was saying, if you clean it and you sort of wiped it down with CLP, it'd be fine, but they do recommend that you install them on the rifle dry. So on the bolt, same thing. We're just going to put a little bit of CLP on there, same as you would with like an AR bolt. Just like that, worked around, and that is fine. Now onto the lower receiver. So on our trigger here, you can see some wear points already occurring right there. So we're going to just kind of put a little bit of CLP on there, because that is a friction point. Again, we're going to slowly drop the hammer. Again, some folks would say to put grease on the disconnector and the spring here. Not hugely important. I would say put a little bit of CLP on there if you want to use grease. Again, same grease I talked about, but the disconnector down in there, a little bit of lubrication certainly isn't going to hurt it. Same on the back of the hammer there. So I'm going to put that down. And really, for the most part, that's all the lubrication you need for this rifle. Time to put this sucker back together. So firstly, we're going to take our piston and stick that back into the piston assembly there, like so. And just like we took it apart, basically with the actual pointing end here of the assembly, we're going to have that pointing at the 4 o'clock position. Now I'm going to tell you, the manual says this just goes in, right? I'm here to tell you in real life it doesn't sometimes. And you kind of have to just wiggle it just like that. And there you go. So you should be able to move it to the 4 o'clock position after we depress this detent right here. Or the 12 o'clock position, excuse me. So push that down, and again, it should rotate. In real life, though, we know it sometimes wants to fight you. So I actually went all the way over, which is where I was going to go anyway, but that's for suppressed firing where I'm going to keep mine, but essentially you want to just have it up at the 12 o'clock position for unsuppressed firing, so you can see how it works there. I actually depressed it a little bit too much, but that is back assembled. Moving on to the carrier itself, we're going to put the bolt in there. You want the extractor facing to the shooter's right, so that's how it's going to go in, just like that. Now we're going to put our cam pin in there, and I forgot. I do recommend putting a little bit of lubrication on that cam pin there. You can see it's actually starting to wear a little bit, so that's one lubrication point I forgot. So we're going to put that in there. You want to make sure it's aligned with the rails, so you don't want it to be vertical, you want it to be horizontal as you put it in there. So now we're going to put our firing pin in the rear, just like that, and we're going to put our retaining pin in from the left side. Sometimes it's a little tricky to get in there, but there you go. You should be able to push it down just like that. So there you go. We're ready. And now we're going to put our recoil spring in there. And when you do that, you want the narrow end, if you can see that, up like that. So as it goes in the rifle, the narrow end goes up, the part with the hole goes down. At this point, the bolt carrier can go in there. And if you kind of tip it down, it does help. If you're not doing this on camera, it probably helps even more. But we're just going to slide that forward until the carrier here gets to the point where you can put the actual charging handle in there, and you can put it in on the left or right side, it doesn't matter. I tend to prefer it on this rifle anyway, on the actual left side of the gun. So there's these little flat spots on there that corresponds to a flat spot on your actual bolt carrier, so you just want to align the flat spot, and then you should go right in there. Oops, get it right. There we go. Now just slide it forward. Next step here is to make sure this little plate is flush, kind of like that. At that point, we can put our stock on there. It should click into place, like so. Now at this point, we can actually put our little receiver in, and you want to go back end first, like that, and make sure our hole is lined up. At this point, we should be able to push the pin over, just like that. And at this point, we just want to do a quick functions check. So we're going to pull it to the rear, let it go. It is on fire. You're going to pull it, hold the trigger to the rear, cycle the action, trigger resets, put it on safe, try to pull the trigger. Nothing. We are good to go. So that is all there is to it, ladies and gentlemen. We have cleaned and lubricated our scar. As I'm looking at it now, I noticed there's some stuff on the outside we want to clean up, and just wipe all that off, and you should be good to go. Really shouldn't require anything more than this. The scar runs relatively dirty. It's actually one of the rifles that's about as happy to be abused as any rifle out there on the planet, but of course we don't want to do that because these are very nice, very expensive firearms, and we want to take care of them. So hopefully, for those of you that are new, or even those of you that have had it for a while, you learned something here, and you guys will have many, many more years and thousands of rounds shooting these guns. So that's about it, guys. Thanks for watching. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel yet and you like what you see here, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and we will hope to see you in the next video.